My name is Elon Osborne, and I like to talk about movies, audio, and music. And a while back, I made this video talking about streaming Atmos versus 4K Blu-ray Atmos. And I would like to revisit that, but on a smaller scale. I'm talking about a 2.1 system. I've been on a 2.1 kick lately, testing out some mini Bluetooth amps, but I wasn't prepared for the revealing results that I came across when listening to streaming content versus 4K Blu-ray discs. As you may already know, I started with the Fosse Audio DA2120C amp, and will soon publish a review on a complete 2.1 system from Dayton Audio, powered by the HDA 100BT tube amp. I was going to mention the differences between streaming content and 4K Blu-ray within those reviews, but ultimately decided to make this standalone video about it instead. So I'm just going to do a quick recap of my findings.
Hooray!
Normally, my LG UBK90 4K Blu-ray player resides in the shed theater. But as I was testing out a 2.1 setup in this living room, my wife and I were catching up on Westworld and I kept having to raise the volume, specifically because of dialogue clarity. Sure, we also have subtitles on so we don't have to crank it up to 11 when the kids go to bed, but I still like to listen to it at a reasonable volume. But having to keep raising the volume after a few minutes meant that when the action picked up or music started playing within the show, I would then have to turn it back down since it was suddenly super loud. Am I the only one who hates riding the volume, always needing to be ready to adjust up or down? I like to just set it and forget it, you know? I know TV shows and movies are supposed to be dynamic though. I get that. Loud parts are supposed to be loud and quiet parts are supposed to be quiet. But as we're watching Westworld, it was like I was raising the volume, but then my brain got acclimated to it after a few minutes. So I needed to turn up the volume again so I could hear the dialogue better, and the cycle continued. At first I thought it was inherent with the mini amp that I was testing. That is until curiosity bit me and I decided, well, what about 4K Blu-ray discs? So I got my 4K Blu-ray player from the shed theater, connected it to the TV in the living room here, and then popped in Jumanji in the next level. Dialogue was crisp, clear, and intelligible.
Wait, what?
The loud parts still got louder, but when the action died down and it was just talking, I didn't have to adjust the volume. Everything was just audible. Everything had its own place. And this was just a 2.1 setup. No center channel, just two bookshelf speakers and a sub. So that made me question everything. And I popped in several discs over the next hour, from Lord of the Rings trilogy to Transformers The Last Night to Dune, to name a few. And this isn't even surround sound, since we're powering a 2.1 system from a mini Bluetooth amp via optical. And still, 4K Blu-ray discs sounded bigger, fuller, wider, and more detailed than streaming. I do have a digital copy of almost all of my 4K discs on Vudu. So with some of the movies, I did test the Vudu version compared to the disc version. And honestly, in that case, the differences were more subtle, since we're dealing with theatrical releases that are mixed very well, no matter how you're watching them. So streaming movie titles off Vudu is still pretty good. But it's back to that whole debate over compressed versus uncompressed audio signals. In order to send an audio signal over great distances between you and the nearest Netflix server, the data arrives in packets and is compressed. So some of that data is lost, which affects how our brains perceive that audio. And this is a complaint that I've seen on a wide spectrum from those just wanting to be entertained. Podcasts that I listen to, video clips, YouTube reviews, whoever. I've heard multiple complaints about how content nowadays is mixed in a way where dialogue is no longer intelligible. Just watch the reviews from Shane Lee, since he'll review the streaming version of several movies before the 4K disc becomes available. And he often complains about how the streaming version has poor bass response, or he needs to turn up the overall volume higher than normal to get it where he wants, etc. But I don't think it's the content or the audio engineer's fault. Maybe it's because we all consume our content via streaming platforms now that we assume that's it? That's just how it is now and we all just have to deal with it, right? Now, I haven't personally experienced this because the series collection is very expensive, but I've heard rumors and read articles that you haven't truly seen nor heard Game of Thrones until you've experienced it on 4K Blu-ray. The reference source material is on par with a movie you'd see in the theaters, but you only get a compressed version of it streaming on HBO. Kind of like how Apple has been in possession of the high-resolution masters of their entire catalog since the invention of the iPod, and yet only recently have they decided to allow you to hear it in a lossless format. But kudos to HBO for even offering a 4K Blu-ray option for Game of Thrones, since there are still plenty of people out there without an HBO subscription. Now I just wish Disney would do the same for big properties like The Mandalorian.
Although I did just discover you can get The Mandalorian on regular DVD? What the?
Or re-release a select few MCU titles with an IMAX aspect ratio, because I'd buy that too. What I'm getting at is that with all the complaints about movies and TV shows mixing their dialogue so quietly nowadays, and just throwing our hands up thinking, well, that's just how it is nowadays, I think it's just an inherent flaw in current compression algorithms and how streaming content is delivered to us. I mean, no wonder so many soundbars these days have some sort of dialogue enhancement feature, but that's just putting a band-aid on the real problem. So I guess streaming still just has a ways to go. Don't get me wrong, it's come leaps and bounds since its inception, when Netflix was just a wee bairn, but I'm still team physical media. I know streaming is there, available, convenient, and allows you to access a huge library of content for a small monthly subscription fee. True. But at least right now in 2022, physical media still provides a superior video and audio experience, where dialogue is mixed properly. And the nice thing about physical media is that you own it. You can touch it, grasp it in your hand, watch it whenever you want. You definitely might have a subscription to Disney Plus, but you don't own anything. Something to think about, eh? Now, I don't mean spending all of your money and going into debt by purchasing everything you own or everything you want on 4K Blu-ray. Trust me, I know how expensive they are. But every once in a while, you still might want to buy a select few that you definitely want in your collection. Because it's not just about how loud it can get, it's about how it's mixed. Helicopter. You hear it? Get to the chopper. A DTS HT Master audio track or a Dolby True HD audio track are still superior than any form of streaming counterpart. It'll even make your soundbar sound better. So, you know, just food for thought. Just maybe every couple of months or so, go out and get yourself a 4K Blu-ray disc of something that you truly enjoy. Or maybe start an Amazon list and get a bunch of 4K Blu-ray discs during the holiday shopping season this year. Whatever the case may be, I just want to reiterate that streaming is not your only option.
And there you have it.
Now, what say you, people of Earth? Have you also experienced this era of entertainment where dialogue is less intelligible? Have you been team streaming but are slowly realizing the benefits of physical media, just like how vinyl records and CDs are gaining popularity again? Or are you perfectly fine with streaming and that's all you need? Let's start a conversation, people. As always, please be kind to each other out there. Don't just watch TV and movies, experience them. And of course, always be listening.